All right, let's look at Prep Test 27, Game 1, which is on page 13 of the simple ordering set. In this game, they say that we have 7 investors and we have 7 days during which those investors are going to visit a building site. Uh, that's the basic part of the game. And then also important, though, they tell us in the scenario that uh, each investor is going to visit the building site exactly one time, so no repeats. And then they tell us that each day exactly one investor will view the site. So there's no double ups. Two people can't visit at the same time uh, on any given day. There's just going to be one investor. And that's important because it tells us basically that this is a one-to-one linear game, which takes a lot of other things that we might have to think about in some other game off of the table. But I just want to caution you that it is important that you see language that indicates a one-to-one linear game. Don't assume it, because if you assume it and it's not actually what LSAC meant, then you'll really mess the game up. Okay. Uh, so with that in mind, let's go to the rules. The first one says Feneley views the site on day 3 or else day 5. That's here. Okay. And so basically they're saying Feneley can't go anywhere else. So I went ahead and did those not laws for Feneley. Can't go in 1, can't go in 2, can't go in 4, can't go in 6, can't go in 7. And some people, like later on, you may not write those not laws out because you might just be like, well, I can see he's got to be in 3 or 5. I kind of know that he can't be anywhere else. And that's fine. But just, early on in your preparation, you may want to be a little bit extra thorough. So I went ahead and did them. Okay. So the next rule says that L cannot be in 4 or 6. So basically, this is a case where it's like the reverse of the first rule. Instead of writing it, you might just write the not laws. Okay, whereas in the first rule, we said we could just write it and skip the not laws. Here, we could just write the not laws and skip writing the rule. But again, just to be complete, I'm trying to do both. Okay, but because this rule is really just telling us like put a not law under 4 and put a not law under 6, right? And that's what we did here. Okay, so the third rule says that if Jones views the site on day 1, then Hall views the site on day 2. So that's written here, and it's conditional, right? Because it's if-then statement. And it just gives us a relationship between a particular placement of Jones resulting in a particular placement of Hall, right? And the next rule is the same way, although it involves different people. The structure is the same. It's saying that if Knight is on visits the site on day 4, then Lopez views the site on day 5. So we just wrote that kind of the same way. And you'll notice that with rules 3 and 4, there aren't any not laws because there's nothing we know for sure. So we can't say that, here's where somebody can't go because we don't have that kind of information in rules 3 and 4. And then finally, we have this fifth rule, which says that Gupta views the site on the day after the day on which Hall views the site. So wherever we put Hall, we have to put Gupta in the very next day. And wherever we put Gupta, we have to put Hall in the day immediately before. This is a rule that I'm sure you're very used to dealing with. It's a block. And it does give rise to not laws, right? Because a block has sequencing information in it. And so any sequencing information has not laws corresponding with it. Actually, I should say usually has not laws corresponding with it. They can tell us what can't happen in a sequence, and in that case, there wouldn't be any not laws. But when they tell us what has to happen, then we do get not laws. And in this case, we know that G can't be first because H has to come before. And we also know that H can't be last because G has to come after. Okay, so that's the basic setup for this game. Let me just say one other thing really quickly, and then we'll move on to the questions. Because if you wanted to try to push this setup further, the one rule that you might go to is this one, which says that F is either going to be in 3 or 5, right? Because you could think about doing templates based on one template where F is in 3 and the other template where F is in 5. The question you want to ask yourself when you're thinking about doing templates is, if I go ahead and write those out, will I then be able to drive some other action and figure some other stuff out that I couldn't figure out in the general setup, but I could figure out in those particular templates. So if we think about that for a second and we're trying to decide whether or not to do the templates, if we put F in 3, we don't really drive that much action, right? We would be able to get a couple more not laws. For example, we know that H would not be able to go in 2. If we put F in 3, H couldn't go in 2, right? Because that would require that G be in 3, but G would have already been spot 3 would have already been filled. And by the same token, we could not put G in 4, again, assuming we put F in 3, we could not put G in 4 because that would require H in 3, but there was already somebody in 3. But that's about it. So we would just get a couple not laws. And so in my view, that probably wouldn't be worth drawing the templates out. And then if we look at the other template, which would be F in 5, we get a few more not laws, and it's a little bit more tempting to try to draw this one out because, look, if we put F in 5, and I'll just put it here for a second, and then I'll take it off. If we put F in 5, right, well, then the not laws we would get would be, for example, we know that H couldn't be here, and we know that G couldn't be here, right? Because of the same analysis that we did for the first template where we were putting F in 3. But then we would also know, for example, that K could not be in 4, right? Because if K was in 4, then L would have to be in 5. So we would know that K could not be in 4. So we would be able to get rid of 4 possibilities for spot 4, but that would still leave us with 3 possibilities. And that would kind of be the end of the line for our templates. I mean, for our deductions deriving from F being in 5. Okay, so probably not worth it to do. So I'm going to go ahead and take those off. I just wanted to take you through the process of how you are going to think about whether or not to do templates. Okay, so I decided that I don't want to do the templates. So let me just say one last thing, which is if you can't decide whether you want to do them, or if you're not sure, then you can go ahead and do them, especially again early on in your preparation when you're really just trying to be thorough more than worry about time. And then as you get closer to the test and you start worrying about time, maybe you'll be a little bit stricter about when you want to do the templates and when you don't want to do them. Okay? All right, so let's get started on the questions. We probably won't have time to get through all of them in this video because there's a time limit on YouTube, but at least we'll get through some of them, and then in the next video we'll finish it up. Okay? And if you only wanted to see the setup, you can stop the video here. Okay. So let's look at number 1. It says which one of this is a list question, which is what we almost always get on the first question of any game. So we do these list questions by taking a rule and applying it to all the answer choices, getting rid of the answer choices that violate that rule, and then going to the next rule. So Feneley has to be 3 or 5. So A is okay, but B is a problem because they have Feneley in 4. C is okay, Feneley's in 5. D is okay, Feneley's in 3. And E is okay, Feneley's in 5. So far we just got rid of B. Okay. Number 2 says L can't be in 4 or 6. So in A, L is in 6. So A and B are out, right? And we're probably not going to be able to get rid of any other ones, but let's see, just to make sure we have to be thorough. So we look at C, L's not in 4 or 6, L's in 1. D, L's in 1, that's fine. And E, L's in 1, so that's fine. Okay, so far we got rid of A and B. The third rule says if J's in 1, then H is in 2, and we're only going to check C, D, and E now. Obviously we know A and B are out. So if J's in 1, then H is in 2. So in order for this rule to apply, J has to be in 1, but J's never in 1. So this rule just flat out does not apply. Okay, we don't have to worry about this rule. So number 4 says if K's in 4, then L's in 5. So do we see any situations where K's in 4? We do. Answer choice D. And is L in 5 there? No. Hall's in 5, so we get rid of D. So far we got rid of A, B, and D. And we have one more rule, and we need to get rid of one more answer choice, so that kind of works out. And we know that H and G have to be in a block in that order, H and then G. And that doesn't happen in C. They have G before H. So C's out, and we just want to make sure that we didn't make any mistakes. We'll check to see if E indeed has the HG block in the right order, and it does, 6 and 7. So E is our answer, okay? The thing about the list questions is, and I've said this probably before in previous videos, they're easy, they're mechanical for the most part, and so you want to go quickly, and you want to make sure that you don't mess them up, okay? All right, so let's look at number 2. If Jones views the site on day 1, which one of the following investors must view the site on day 4? Okay, so this is a local question. You would create a local diagram right next to number 2. I'm going to go ahead and do it on the main setup because I'll run out of space otherwise. So if Joan views the site on day 1, sorry. If Jones views the site on day 1, which one of the following investors must view the site on day 4? So before we look at the answers, we just want to go ahead and put J in 1 and figure out what's going to follow from this, okay? So we look at the rules and we see that rule number 3 says that if J's in 1, then H has to be in 2. So we'll go ahead and put H in 2, okay? And now you guys might be going ahead of me here, but G is going to go in 3, right? Because of the HG block, okay? And now let's see, F had to be in either 3 or 5, but G is already in 3, so F can't be in 3, so F is going to have to be in 5, right? And so now who's left? So far we've used up J, H, G, and F. So we have K, L, M left. And one of the rules says that L can't be in 4 or 6. So the only place left open that L is allowed to go is in 7. And so now the people we have left are K and M. And we look at the rule that says if K is in 4, then L has to be in 5. But L is definitely not in 5. We just put L in 7. So that means that K can't be in 4. Okay? So K is going to have to be in 6. And that would leave M to be in spot 4. Okay? So this all started just from the fact that Jones was on day 1. We figured out where everybody else has to go. Okay? So if Jones views the site on day 1, who has to view the site on day 4? M. All right, so the answer here is E. Hopefully that was not too difficult. You did have to use a lot of rules to generate all of the analysis, but hopefully it wasn't too bad, and you can see that that's totally a question that you can handle.